Hi there, and welcome to ReinardSynth episode number 15. I was lucky and was the first one to react to an advert for a cheap, broken, but still infamous Lexicon PCM90 digital reverberator. Little did I know that it would take me almost 2 years to fix this thing. Okay, not 2 years of continuous work, but working on it on and off, letting it rest for a while, for a couple of months, put it in the corner, you know, this rubbish corner I have in my man cave, and then have a look at it again. You know, a project that's tucked away in the corner and you will take it out once in a while. And it was an adventure. Ups and downs, ins and outs, rabbit holes, new gear had to be bought so they could really see what was happening inside this machine. And in the end, it came down to trusting an IC too much, looking at you buddy, and basic signal tracing on the PCB. But hey, what do you know? I have a nicer kit now and my test gas disorder has been cured. Well, for a while it is. Anyhow, I succeeded in the end and I learned a lot. This episode is here to convey my learnings to you, see the summary at the very end, and get your PCM90 or 80 or 91 or PCM81, all similar build, to get them working again.
This story is based on actual events. In certain cases, incidents, repairs and timelines have been changed, shortened, or removed for dramatic or educational purposes.
First things first, can I get my hands on a service manual of the PCM90? And yes, you can. And one of the best service manuals I have seen up to now. Lexicon really went the extra mile on this one and provided a high-level overview, how the built-in diagnostics work and what the error codes mean. A whole theory of operation chapter where it is described in great detail how the PCM90 works with an architecture overview, and if you scroll down also a memory map and most importantly the schematics of the various parts. Although interestingly not the schematics of the DSP board on which the magic Lexi chips are located. Certain things they want to keep close to their chest, I think. Let's get cracking. The owner I bought it from stated that it just stopped working, so I thought, must be a power supply issue or something simple. Score! But when I tried turning it on, nothing. By the way, before we start, you can remove without issue the daughter board with the core reverb engine on it. Your PCM will boot without it, and you can now have access to all the ICs and all the signals on the board. So, I did the first check. The power supply unit, okay, all rails checked out and are within spec. And also the cable to the analog power section was okay. And actually Lexicon put some nice labeled test points on the PCB. So easy to check. Thank you Lexicon, exemplary. I also checked the reset circuitry and it was okay. A reset is generated after power on and reaches the CPU and the CPU just starts running. Okay. The clocks then, all measured okay and are within specification. I also checked the continuity of the databus from the CPU to the static RAM and EPROM, and that was also okay. So that's the basic things done then. What now? I then tested if the EPROM and the static RAM ICs were okay. The SRAM tested just fine in my TL86 tester, and the EPROM also tested okay, and I could read the contents of the EPROM. Let me repeat this. The EPROM tested just fine. Foreshadowing. The first thing I thought was that the EPROM is not addressed correctly. Looking at the memory map, the EPROM is mapped in the top address range of the CPU. And you can see the EPROM being addressed when both host address bits 18 and 19 are high. So one should be able to see that on the output of the address bus latch U50 with its oscilloscope when triggering on the address bus latch signal from the CPU. But that was not what I saw on the scope for host address bits 18 and 19, nor 16 and 17 for that matter. For sure there's something wrong with the U50, right? Let's replace it. Well, after the repair it looked much better. The address lines seem to latch correctly now. Well, that was not it. I'm going to put this device away and have a look at it in a couple of months.
Many months later.
And after a refreshing break from the PCM90, let's look at it again. The EPROM is good, so why is it not read correctly? Let's investigate the databus now. Let's scope the databus and see if there are some signal problems on it that might cause misreads, right? Now, looking at the signal of one of the data bits, I saw strange signal levels, sometimes 5 volt, then 4 volts, then slight level changes when being logic high. There must be something wrong on the databus, isn't it? Looking at the schematics, the databus is used to connect to input buffers, for instance to read the keypad, the encoders and the output of the DSP board. The databus is also used to connect to output buffers, for instance to control the level LED to write to the display or control some function on the DSP board. And lastly, the databus is also directly connected to the dynamic RAM ICs. Well, suspecting anything directly connected to the databus dragging it down, I started to replace them one by one to see if this improved the situation. I have no video of that, but you can imagine me hacking away with a plier on the buffer ICs, cutting them out and replacing them with socketed new buffer ICs. And here is the cemetery of the removed ICs. And to be sure, I also replaced the dynamic RAM chips. Did this solve the problem? No.
Many months later.
As a last-ditch effort, I had to try burning a new EEPROM. Why? Because this EEPROM does not look like a factory-installed EEPROM. Look at the white sticker on it. So I programmed one with an image of the version 1.01 firmware, link in the description, plugged it in, turned it on, and it boots. Albeit with an EEPROM checksum error, but for the first time, some signs of life, yeah. Hold on. So all the things I did were for naught just because of the EEPROM? But why the checksum error? Is there an error in the firmware image I used? I burned a second EEPROM with the version 1 firmware, and a big shout out to Harry Exton for providing that image on the Facebook group Vintage Synth Repairs and Mods. I put the EEPROM in, and here the checksum check did not throw an error, so I kept this EEPROM in the PCM90. I could now also go into diagnostics mode by pressing the control and tempo buttons simultaneously at power on, but I now stumbled on a new problem. I could not go further than the encoder test where it got stuck. It did not respond to turns on one of the encoders. And additionally, after having replaced the DRAM dynamic RAM chips, I also got now a dynamic RAM test error.
Many months later.
And now for the grand finale, the last rabbit hole.
Release the logic analyzer.
Yeah, I just couldn't understand why the encoders were not working. I also want to have one of these logic analyzers. The 8 channels on my mixed signal oscilloscope does not cut it, and I found a good one for little money, so I grabbed one. Still have to learn how to use it correctly though, especially the trigger definitions are an art in itself. But anyway, I first tried to use the 8 logic channels of my scope, and here I found that the CPU actually does read the encoders. Looking at the method of operation section, it is said that reading the keypad and encoders is done by a maskable interrupt routine. Is there some issue with the encoder readout not reaching the CPU, for instance? So I tried to see if upon such an interrupt the encoders are read and made available to the CPU. Well, first I put some test clips on the 4 output bits of the encoders directly from the encoders themselves, which you see pointed at by the blue encoder output box. I also read the 4 bits as they should arrive at the CPU directly, the lower nibble of the byte presented by U59 to the CPU. This should confirm if it really arrives at the CPU, and that's pointed out by the red box. I then triggered on the buffer IC connected to the encoders being read by the CPU to read the encoder output. Row RD, that's row read. For good measure, I also probed buff-N, buffer enable, which transfers what is on the databus to the CPU. That should do it. And lo and behold, the CPU periodically reads the encoder. For sure, the DRAM test error should have nothing to do with reading the encoders, right? That does it. Now I'm going medieval on this sucker, hooking up the logic analyzer to the databus, address bus, read-write lines and panel read line. I made some adapters to be able to connect the probes to the ICs more easily, and after connecting 36 probes to the PCM90, I could start seeing better what was happening inside. Interesting. Very interesting. Did it show what was wrong? Not really. Did it make me think what might be going on? Definitely. Remember the DRAM test error? So I thought, the CPU is reading the encoders. The interrupt routine might try to write to DRAM the results of the encoders for the test routine to use. But if it's not written to DRAM because, well, DRAM error, then nothing will work. I really have to triple check that the DRAM gets all the signals, databus, address bus and read-write signals. And I started checking continuity. And I found it. There was a broken trace on the mainboard underneath the DRAM IC that carried the host memory write signal. And thus the write signal did not arrive at the DRAM ICs, and therefore DRAM test error. I bridged it with a bodge wire, turned it on, and presto, the PCM90 passed the diagnostic and it just works. The interrupt routine that reads the encoder has to write the results in DRAM, and writing to DRAM does not work, ergo the encoders are not re-read by the test routines from DRAM, and ergo you cannot select the diagnostic test, etc. The encoders appear just not to be working.
Simples.
Now that the PCM90 is working again, I did some other tests to see if everything else was okay. And here I did find something. The plus and minus 15 volt rails were a bit iffy. When I touched the main power supply connector, sometimes the audio might drop out. And this was caused by some nice dry solder joints. Easily solved by just resoldering them. Everything else tested okay, so I cleaned it up a bit and also deoxidated the encoders a bit and put it together and done. After 2 years, finally. So what are the lessons learned? Well, first of all, sophisticated test gear can send you down rabbit holes. I'm still learning how to use them properly, and it did help me to rule out some issues and to point me in the direction of the error to search for. But it's still a mixed bag. It can help and also not help you. Secondly, when probing signals, always do it as close as possible to the target IC or on the actual pin on the target IC itself. For instance, I missed completely that the write signal did not arrive at the DRAM IC. I probed closer to the CPU, and there I did see, of course, the write signal. And yeah, I missed it. Third, remember the basics. Always do continuity testing on traces on the PCB and check voltages, all those kind of things. Those basic tests you always have to do before you start grabbing those specialized tools. Fourth, when replacing ICs, be careful not to damage PCB traces and always check PCB trace continuity afterwards. For instance, I cannot rule out that the changing of the DRAM ICs actually caused that break in the write signal. So be careful. Although I did not suspect the EPROM at the beginning, I'm still not convinced that that the next repairs should look for defective ICs. ICs do not go bad that often, so check those simpler causes first. Well, there you have it. That's what I learned, I think, and hopefully I will apply it on the next repair.